56.9% of these students heard homophobic and negative gender expressions that coming from teachers.
From teachers.
Okay, coming from teachers. 60.4% of students experience being harassed, assaulted, or bullied, but they didn't report the incident because they felt that they would be ignored or that it would just make things even worse. And then it said 36.7% of the students who did report the incident said the school staff did nothing about it in response. When we were talking, you mentioned something about a teacher who I guess was talking about Langston Hughes.
Oh yeah. So when I was my sophomore year in high school, this is why I'm so happy that you're doing this. This is a big step forward for the school district and for all of us. Because I remember in middle school, high school, my freshman and sophomore year, and the history class, and they were talking about people in history, and we were talking about Langston Hughes, and some students said, wasn't he a gay guy? Wasn't he a, and the teacher said, well, we're not supposed to talk about that, but he was gay.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I wasn't even out, but I wasn't gay. I don't even know if I even knew what gay was at the time, because I didn't come out to my senior year of high school. But the first time I realized there were gay people in the world. It was really interesting, thinking back on that, it's really interesting that, that was for me, because I wonder why it's so hard for so many young people to come out. Because I don't see anybody else out there like me. If there's nobody in history who's ever done anything meaningful or significant in the world, then I'm the only one. If everyone is legendary or has made meaningful contributions to humanity or straight or heterosexual, then there's no room for me. And so when I came out, it was a culture shock to me because I didn't know there was Langston Hughes or James Baldwin or Baylor Rustin who was Dr. King's right-hand man in the marches in Washington, or the Jordan Hurston perhaps was a lesbian. I didn't know that was there. So when I came out, the first thing I did was find out about my history, because what it does is built me up to realize that there were millions of brilliant people out there who've done meaningful things in the world who were just like me. Just like me. Just like me. And
they probably had the same feeling before they came out.
Right.
That they did anything, but it would be a lonely journey for them.
Very much so. And, even when you talk about the bullying and stuff, I was telling you earlier that I remember in Shortridge, I went to Shortridge, and then I went to Addicts, and then I went to Manual. I remember being bullied because it was hot one summer, and I had a sweater on, and I tied the sweater around my waist, and I was in home ec class. And this was probably sixth grade, and this big guy was laughing Holyfield. It was like he had his
You remember, yeah.
And I was with all the people in home ec, and he said, you look like a girl with that sweater around your waist. And I ignored him, and I was doing my work. And because I ignored him, and everyone was laughing that I ignored him, he slapped me across my face. Like punch slapped me. I heard church bells ringing. It wasn't funny then, but it's funny now. But I remember going to the administrators and the teachers and principals, and I think I suspended for a day or two, and nothing had happened. He didn't bother me again. But because of that stuff, statistics say that LGBT youth are 4 times likely to commit suicide than straight youth. And no one is doing anything. And everyone watching knows, this big thing that was on, that happened with IPS about the student who was being bullied and people were throwing bottles at him in school and all this stuff, and no one was doing anything administration-wise, and his mom gave him a stun gun. Now, which I don't, think that was the best idea, but they gave him a stun gun to protect himself, and one evening, 6 or 7 thugs surrounded him to beat him up, and he pulled it out, didn't use it, pulled it out, and he suspended and expelled. And now, that whole situation, that's different. I understand. I'm not going to argue whether he should or not, but it became national news.
Yes, it did.
It became national news, which meant a lot to me, because when it was on CNN and he was interviewed by Don Lemon, I didn't know the student at the time. He had said, Don Lemon asked him what helped him not commit suicide when he was being bullied all the time. And he said, he pulled my magazine out.
Sure did. I saw
and said, ECT magazine, David Bridgeforth, which made me realize the work that I'm doing means something, which is why I'm so happy that you're doing it. It means something. There's people watching this. Yes. It means something.
Absolutely. I think you kind of talked about this. When did you first realize you had an alternative lifestyle? And how did this affect your schooling? Did it?
When I came
as I hear you talk, I'm thinking about other students who have not come out and who are maybe so confused, yes, and conflicted inside. So, to me, this could have an impact, not only on their self-esteem, but on their academic achievement.
Yes, yes, because it's not, it is a very, I didn't experience this, but I know many people who do experience this, like the young students who is getting talked about and called faggot and dance and punk and sissy and all these words. That psychologically, no other student has to deal with that. Straight students are not dealing with that. They're not being, talked about, and that's like oppression, which creates depression. It's a very, very negative experience for students, and, of course it's going to have an effect on how they show up academically, how they show up in school, how they are socially, all of that. And the only thing that I heard said by administrators and teachers at the time when particular student, I think it's Dynasty, was going through the experience was he shouldn't have dressed so flamboyantly. I thought that we were creating an environment that young people are allowed to be free and to be open and have the space to evolve and develop into who they want to be as young people and to learn. This is an environment that is supposed to cultivate the genius in young people. And that creative genius looks differently, on certain students. So I think that, we owe it to ourselves as adults, as administrators, well, I'm not a teacher administrators, but teachers and administrators and just students and people in general, to take a look outside of our boundaries, to open up to the possibilities that, of course, that people are different than us, and that doesn't mean any less.
Right, and if you really care about the welfare and well-being of these students who are under your charge, you've got to open up.
Because it's bigger than you.
Yes,
and what your
not
beliefs.
even about you.
Yeah.
It really
And your perspective and your beliefs and what you feel and what your convictions are has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and suppose you have students who have two mothers, are being raised by two fathers, or have even joined in marriage with the same sex.
Yes.
How do you, as a teacher, let that impact what goes on in your relationship between you and that student? Because I can see some teachers that really have a challenge dealing with it. And they say things like, well, it's against my biblical teaching. I know you hear that all the time.
I hear it all the time. Now they don't come talk to me. I really know how I feel that.
But when the teachers, when they say
but the thing is, but the responses that you have to realize, and I believe that because my grandfather, who I love dearly, he has that conviction. It has something to do with the love that I have for you and the acceptance I have for you. And what I also realize is just because you have that conviction does not mean that everyone else in the world, everyone else in your classroom, every student you encounter has that same conviction. Therefore, they should be judged or dealt with from that space.
From that lens.
It shouldn't be at all. Because you better church, but it's kind of keep that in your personal life. But school is a place, or it should be a place, where I'm allowed to, in the boundaries and confines of safety, allowed to develop and evolve and grow and discover myself. Come to this place to find what I already have, all the great things that are possible for me. And I shouldn't be hindered, or discouraged, or disrespected, or, all the things that happen,
and I'm just now finding this out. The Indianapolis Public Schools, in its family life curriculum, addresses this.
Good.
It addresses this, and I've been told by Audrey Satterblum, she's head of health
already endorsed.
Exactly.
Frank Ocean is out. Magic Johnson's son has just come out.
Yeah.
Beyonce supports it.
Right.
Every pop star, people, the rest of the world is the rest. Do we want to leave this city behind?
When I was in Fort Lauderdale, I read in the newspaper where they have developed a full curriculum guide on this, and I just wish I could have gone to that meeting. And all of the school, just like we trained all of the school personnel in the West Palm Beach School District on Black history and culture, they're doing the same thing. With yeah.
Because you need to know, because what happens is, how do you think a student feels who's LGBT, who is in the classroom and no one that talked about history, their sexual preference or their lifestyle or their alternative lifestyle is brought up? You don't feel like you're valued.
Right.
Different values. I don't know all the amazing people in history who were LGBT, who contributed, who we read their books. We sing their songs. We watch, they're a part of our society, but we don't talk about it.
It makes so much sense. Because that's the same thing I tell teachers about African Americans.
Yes.
And look how all of these African Americans all over the world have touched your life in so many ways. And it's the same way.
And what's interesting is that it's the same thing it's the same oppression that African Americans dealt with, the presidents that African Americans dealt with years ago, that we are just now getting out of. African Americans being one of the largest groups that have oppressed LGBT, and it's backwards.
Yeah.
It's really backwards because it's the same thing that my grandparents, my great grandparents, and everyone else who fought